camera focused on a woman sitting alone in a small, dimly lit room. Her hands trembled slightly as they rested on the table before her. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, evidence of sleepless nights that had stretched into weeks. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of something heavy, something that had changed her forever. Nothing prepared me for what I saw under her clothing, Miss Sarah Reynolds whispered, her gaze fixed somewhere beyond the camera lens. I've been a teacher for 12 years. I thought I'd seen everything. But that day broke something inside me. The screen faded to black, and dramatic music swelled as the title appeared in bold white letters against the darkness. This wasn't just another story about school life. This was about the moment one teacher's instinct saved a child's life. Before diving deeper into what happened that autumn morning, drop a comment and let everyone know where you're watching from. Whether you're tuning in from California, Texas, New York, or anywhere else in the world, we'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy educational stories like this that shine a light on real issues affecting children, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and share it with someone who'd appreciate it too. These stories matter, and your engagement helps them reach people who need to see them. The morning of September 15th started like any other at Riverside Elementary School. Children poured through the front doors, their voices echoing off the walls as they reunited with friends after a long weekend. Teachers stood at their classroom doorways, greeting students with smiles and high fives. The air smelled of fresh notebooks and cafeteria breakfast, that particular combination that marked the beginning of another school year. Sarah Reynolds straightened the papers on her desk, preparing for her third-grade class to settle in. At 34, she'd found her calling in teaching. She loved watching children's faces light up when they finally understood a difficult concept, loved the way they trusted her with their fears and their triumphs. But nothing in her training, none of the workshops or seminars, had truly prepared her for what was coming. The students filed in, hanging backpacks on hooks and finding their assigned seats. Most of them had been in Sarah's class since the first day of school 3 weeks earlier. They knew the routine, understood her expectations. But there was one student who still seemed like a mystery. Lena Martinez sat in the third row near the window. She was small for 8 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and enormous brown eyes that seemed to take in everything while revealing nothing. She'd transferred to Riverside just 2 weeks into the school year, arriving with minimal paperwork and even less explanation. The office had simply informed Sarah that a new student would be joining her class. And that was that. From the very first day, Lena had been different. Not disruptive, not problematic in any obvious way. Just different. Quiet. Almost invisible, if that were possible. "Good morning, everyone," Sarah called out, watching as 23 faces turned toward her. 22 of them smiled back. Lena's expression remained neutral, carefully blank. "I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Today we're going to continue our unit on ecosystems, and I think you're really going to enjoy the video I have planned." The class responded with enthusiasm, everyone except Lena, who simply nodded once and looked down at her desk. Sarah had noticed things about Lena over the past 2 weeks, small things that individually seemed insignificant, but together formed a pattern that made her uneasy. The girl wore the same dark blue jacket every single day, regardless of the temperature. The weather had been unseasonably warm for September, with temperatures climbing into the low 80s most afternoons. The classroom sometimes felt stuffy, despite the air conditioning doing its best. Other children had stripped down to t-shirts and shorts, but Lena kept that jacket zipped up to her chin. When Sarah had gently suggested she might be more comfortable removing it, Lena had shaken her head quickly, clutching the jacket's edges as if afraid someone might try to take it by force. "I'm cold," she'd said, even though small beads of sweat dotted her forehead. Sarah hadn't pushed the issue. Children had their quirks, their comfort items. Maybe the jacket made Lena feel secure in this new environment. But as the days passed, she noticed more. The way Lena sat, for instance. Most children sprawled in their chairs, relaxed and comfortable. Lena perched on the very edge of hers, her back rigidly straight, as if sitting fully in the chair caused her pain. Several times Sarah had seen her wince when she shifted position, a quick flash of discomfort crossing her face before she schooled her features back into that careful neutrality. During recess, while other children ran and played, Lena stood by the fence, watching. She never climbed on the playground equipment, never joined the games of tag or the jump rope circles. When a ball accidentally rolled her way and another child ran to retrieve it, Lena flinched away from the contact as if expecting to be hit. Sarah had started keeping notes. She couldn't quite articulate why, but instinct told her something wasn't right. On September 10th, she wrote, "Lena refuses to remove jacket despite heat, sitting oddly, on edge of chair. Avoids physical contact with other students." On September 12th, Lena walked to her desk this morning with visible stiffness. Movements seemed constrained, careful. Asked if she was okay. She said yes, but wouldn't meet my eyes. On September 14th, during art class, Lena kept her left arm close to her body, only using her right hand to paint. When I encouraged her to use both hands for the project, she looked frightened and shook her head. Something is wrong. Now, on September 15th, Sarah watched Lena carefully as the morning progressed. The girl completed her work diligently, her handwriting neat and precise. She knew the answers when called upon, but spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. During a group activity, when Sarah asked students to form circles on the floor, Lena remained in her chair. "Lena, honey, we need everyone on the floor for this activity," Sarah said gently, approaching the girl's desk. "I can't," Lena whispered, her eyes filling with tears that she blinked away rapidly. "Please don't make me." "Why can't you sit on the floor?" Sarah asked, kneeling beside the desk so she was at the girl's eye level. "Are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Lena said automatically, but her voice cracked on the word, "fine." "I just want to stay here." Sarah studied her for a long moment, concern deepening into something closer to alarm. This wasn't normal childhood behavior. This was fear. "Okay," she said finally. "You can complete the activity at your desk." Relief flooded Lena's face, and that reaction alone confirmed Sarah's suspicions. Something was very wrong with this child, and it went far beyond ordinary shyness or adjustment issues. At lunch, Sarah sought out the school counselor, Mrs. Patricia Chen. They met in Patricia's small office, decorated with cheerful posters about emotions and self-esteem. "I'm worried about one of my students," Sarah began, settling into the chair across from Patricia's desk. "Lena Martinez, 3rd grade. She transferred in 2 weeks ago." Patricia pulled up Lena's file on her computer, scanning the information. "I see. What are your concerns?" Sarah outlined everything she'd observed. The jacket, the strange way of sitting, the flinching, the avoidance of physical activity. "Something's not right, Patricia. I think she might be hurt, or scared, or both." Patricia's expression grew serious. "Have you tried contacting the parents?" "I've called the number listed in her file 3 times, Sarah admitted. The first 2 times no one answered. The 3rd time a man picked up. When I explained who I was and why I was calling, he got defensive, said Lena was fine and we should mind our own business. Then he hung up. "That's concerning," Patricia said, making notes. "What was your impression of this man? Was he the father?" "I don't know. He didn't identify himself. He sounded older, though. And angry. Very angry." Sarah leaned forward. "Patricia, I think we need to do something. I don't know what, exactly, But we can't just ignore this. You're right, Patricia agreed. Let me reach out to the family again, through official channels this time. I'll also check with the nurse to see if there have been any health issues reported. In the meantime, keep documenting everything you observe. If we need to make a report to Child Protective Services, we'll need detailed records. The words Child Protective Services hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Sarah had never had to make such a report before. The thought of it made her stomach twist with anxiety. What if she was wrong? What if she was overreacting to nothing more than a shy child with some quirks? But what if she was right and did nothing? That afternoon, during physical education class, Sarah's concerns intensified. The PE teacher, Mr. Jackson, had organized a simple game of relay races. The children were divided into teams, excitement high as they prepared to compete. Lena stood at the back of her team line, that jacket still zipped despite the warmth of the gymnasium. "Okay, Lena, you're up next," Mr. Jackson called when it was her turn to run. Lena didn't move. She stood frozen, her face pale. "Lena, are you ready?" Mr. Jackson walked over, confused by her lack of response. "I can't," she whispered, so quietly that Sarah, standing nearby, could barely hear her. "Why not? Are you feeling sick?" Mr. Jackson asked, not unkindly. Lena shook her head, but tears were streaming down her face now. The other children had stopped playing, turning to stare at the crying girl who wouldn't participate. Sarah hurried over, gently guiding Lena away from the group. "It's okay, sweetie. You don't have to run if you don't want to." "He'll be so mad," Lena sobbed, the words tumbling out in a rush of fear. "He told me not to tell. He said if anyone found out, it would be worse." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Who told you not to tell, Lena? Not to tell what?" But Lena clamped her mouth shut, shaking her head violently. The moment of vulnerability closed as quickly as it had opened, and the careful, blank expression returned to the child's face. "I want to go back to class," Lena said, her voice flat. "Please." Sarah looked at Mr. Jackson, who appeared equally troubled. They both knew what they'd heard. A child saying someone would be mad if she told. A child afraid of consequences for revealing something. "Okay," Sarah said softly. "Let's go back to the classroom." As they walked through the quiet hallways, Lena slightly ahead and Sarah following close behind, the teacher's mind raced. Every instinct screamed that this child was in danger. But danger from whom? From what? And how could she help without making things worse? When they reached the classroom, Sarah helped Lena settle at her desk with a book. The other students would return from PE in 20 minutes. They had time. "Lena," Sarah began carefully, pulling a chair next to the girl's desk, "I want you to know that you're safe here. At school, with me, you're safe. Nothing bad will happen to you here." Lena didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the book's pages, even though Sarah could tell she wasn't actually reading. "If someone is hurting you, if someone is making you scared, I need to know about it. Not because you'll get in trouble, but because it's my job to keep you safe. Do you understand?" A single tear rolled down Lena's cheek. She brushed it away quickly, roughly, as if angry at herself for showing weakness. "No one's hurting me," she whispered, but the lie was obvious in every syllable. Sarah's heart broke. Here was a child so frightened, so conditioned to hide her pain, that she couldn't even accept help when it was offered. Whatever was happening to Lena, it had taught her that silence was survival. "Okay," Sarah said, though she didn't believe it for a second. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of lessons and activities, but Sarah's attention remained fractured, split between teaching her class and watching Lena. The girl had retreated even further into herself after their conversation, if that were possible. She completed her assignments mechanically, her small hand moving across the paper with precision, but no joy. When the final bell rang and children gathered their belongings, Sarah watched carefully as Lena prepared to leave. The girl moved stiffly, slowly, taking extra time to pack her backpack. She was in no hurry to go home, Sarah realized. That reluctance spoke volumes. "Have a good evening, Lena," Sarah called out as the girl headed toward the door. Lena paused, turned back. For just a moment, her carefully constructed mask slipped, and Sarah saw raw pleading in those dark eyes. "Help me," they seemed to say. But then the moment passed and Lena simply nodded before disappearing into the crowded hallway. Sarah sat at her desk long after the classroom had emptied, staring at the notes she'd been keeping about Lena. The words looked stark and terrible, written out like this, a catalogue of concerning behaviors that individually might be explained away, but together painted a picture of a child in crisis. Her phone buzzed with a text from her husband, asking when she'd be home for dinner. Sarah texted back that she'd be late, that something had come up at work. She needed to talk to Patricia Chen again before she left, needed to make sure they had a plan for tomorrow, for the next day, for however long it took to get to the truth of what was happening to Lena Martinez. Patricia was still in her office working through her own stack of paperwork. She looked up when Sarah knocked, unsurprised to see her. "I was hoping you'd come by," Patricia said, gesturing for Sarah to enter. "I've been making calls. I spoke with the school nurse, Mrs. Anderson. She tried to do Lena's initial health screening when she enrolled, but the girl refused to let her conduct a basic examination. Wouldn't let her check her ears, her throat, nothing. The family signed a waiver saying they'd have Lena seen by their own doctor and provide documentation, but we've received nothing." "What about the family themselves?" Sarah asked. "Did you find out anything?" Patricia's expression darkened. "The address on file is a small rental house on the east side. I did some quiet checking. Neighbors reported hearing arguments late at night, sometimes what sounds like crying. But nothing concrete, nothing that's warranted a call to police. The mother, Rosa Martinez, works 2 jobs as a housekeeper. She's apparently gone from early morning until late evening most days." "So who's watching Lena?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer. "According to what I could find out, there's a relative staying with them. Rosa's cousin or uncle, the information I got, was unclear. A man named Hector. He's supposedly helping with childcare while Rosa works, but beyond that, I know nothing about him. No background check was ever filed with the school because he's not an official guardian." Sarah's hands clenched into fists in her lap. "That's the man who answered the phone. I'm sure of it. Patricia, we need to do something. We can't just send her home every day to whatever is happening there." "I know," Patricia said quietly, "but we need to be careful. If we act without sufficient evidence and we're wrong, we could destroy an innocent family. And if we're right, but we tip off the abuser before we can get Lena to safety, we could make things worse for her. So what do we do?" Patricia was silent for a long moment, weighing their options. "Tomorrow, I'm going to request a welfare check, just a conversation, nothing formal yet. We'll ask Lena very gently if we can make sure she's not hurt. If she agrees to let us examine her clothing, see if there are any visible signs of injury, that will tell us what our next steps need to be. And if she refuses, then we'll have to make a decision based on what we know," Patricia said. "But Sarah, you need to prepare yourself. If there's abuse, if there's neglect, what we might find could be disturbing. These situations are never easy." Sarah nodded, though unease settled in her stomach like a stone. She'd become a teacher because she loved children, loved learning, loved the innocent joy of elementary school. Discovering that one of her students was being harmed would shatter something in her worldview. She knew that already. But if Lena needed her to be strong, to be brave, then that's what she would be. That night, Sarah barely slept. She kept seeing Lena's face, those frightened eyes, the way the girl flinched away from touch. She thought about the tears that had leaked out during PE, the whispered words about someone being mad, about not telling. Who was hurting this little girl? What kind of person could look at a child and choose to cause pain? The next morning, September 16th, Sarah arrived at school early. Patricia was already there, waiting in the main office with Principal Henderson, a stern but fair woman in her 50s who took the well-being of her students seriously. "Mrs. Reynolds," Principal Henderson greeted her. "Mrs. Chen has briefed me on the situation with Lena Martinez. I agree that we need to conduct a welfare check today. I've cleared my schedule for this morning. We'll speak with Lena during first period if that works for your class schedule." "Of course," Sarah said. "Whatever Lena needs." "I want to be clear about our approach," the principal continued. "This needs to be gentle, trauma-informed. We're not interrogating this child. We're expressing concern and asking if she needs help. If she becomes distressed or refuses to cooperate, we don't push. But if she does allow us to check for injuries and we find evidence of abuse, we call CPS and law enforcement immediately. Understood?" Both Sarah and Patricia nodded. "Good. Let's hope we're wrong about this," Principal Henderson said, though her tone suggested she didn't believe they were. When the students arrived, Sarah tried to maintain normalcy. She led them through morning announcements, through the Pledge of Allegiance, through taking attendance. But her eyes kept drifting to Lena, who sat in her usual spot wearing that same blue jacket, her face carefully expressionless. At 9:15, there was a soft knock on the classroom door. Principal Henderson stood there, offering Sarah a subtle nod. "Class, I need to borrow Lena for a few minutes," Sarah announced, keeping her voice cheerful and light. "Lena, sweetie, could you come with me, please?" Lena's eyes widened with fear, and for a moment Sarah thought she might refuse. But then the girl stood slowly, carefully, and walked toward the door. The other students barely looked up, already absorbed in the worksheets Sarah had distributed. They walked through the hallways in silence, Principal Henderson leading the way with Patricia and Sarah flanking Lena. The girl's breathing had quickened, shallow and rapid. She knew something was happening, even if she didn't know exactly what. They entered Patricia's office, the same cheerful space Sarah had visited yesterday. But today it felt different, charged with tension and anticipation. Patricia closed the door gently, and Principal Henderson gestured for Lena to sit in a comfortable chair. "Lena, honey, you're not in any trouble," the principal began, her voice warm and reassuring. "We just want to talk with you for a few minutes, okay?" Lena nodded but said nothing, her hands gripping the arms of the chair. Sarah knelt beside the chair so she was at Lena's eye level, just as she'd done before. "Remember yesterday when you said someone would be mad if you told? That scared me, Lena. It scared me because I care about you, and I want to make sure you're safe and healthy." Tears began to well in Lena's eyes, but she blinked them back furiously. Patricia pulled up a chair, creating a small circle of adults around the frightened child. "Lena, we've noticed that you seem uncomfortable sometimes, that you move carefully, like something hurts. And we noticed you always keep your jacket on, even when it's warm. Can you tell us why?" "I'm just cold," Lena whispered, the same excuse she'd used before. "Okay," Patricia said gently, "but here's what worries us. When children are hurt, sometimes they hide it because they're scared to tell. They think something bad will happen if they ask for help. But the thing is, Lena, if you're hurt, we need to know. Because helping you is more important than anything else. Does that make sense?" Lena was crying openly now, silent tears streaming down her face. Her small body trembled. "Sweetie, I need to ask you something," Sarah said softly. "And you can say no if you want to. But would you let us make sure you're not hurt under your jacket? We just want to check that you're okay. Just us, right here in this room. No one else needs to know." He said I can't, Lena sobbed. He said if anyone sees, they'll take me away from Mama. He said I'd go to a bad place where they hurt kids even worse. He said it's our secret and I have to keep it or everything will be my fault. The adults exchanged glances, their worst fears confirming themselves in real time. Someone had been hurting this child and conditioning her to hide it, using her love for her mother and her fear of the unknown as weapons to ensure her silence. Lena, listen to me, Principal Henderson said firmly but kindly. Whatever this person told you, it's not true. The truth is that we're here to help you, not hurt you. And if someone has been hurting you, that person is the one who's wrong, not you. You haven't done anything wrong by keeping a secret you were forced to keep. Do you understand? Lena was shaking now, her whole body racked with sobs. It hurts, she finally gasped out. It hurts so much and I can't tell anyone and I'm so tired. Sarah felt her own tears threatening, but she blinked them away. This child needed her to be strong right now. I know, baby. I know you're tired. So let us help. Please, let us make sure you're okay. There was a long moment of silence broken only by Lena's crying. Then, slowly, the girl nodded. Okay, Patricia said gently. Thank you for trusting us, Lena. This is very brave of you. Now I'm going to ask you to stand up, and we're just going to help you take off your jacket. That's all. Just the jacket for now. Is that okay? Lena stood on shaking legs. Her hands went to the zipper of her jacket, but they were trembling too badly to grasp it. Sarah reached out slowly, telegraphing her movements so she wouldn't startle the girl. I'm just going to help with the zipper, okay? Sarah said. Lena nodded, her eyes squeezed shut as if she couldn't bear to watch. Sarah's fingers found the zipper and slowly, carefully, began to pull it down. The jacket fell open, revealing a long-sleeved shirt underneath. Nothing unusual yet, though it was strange to be wearing long sleeves in this warm weather. Can we help you take off your shirt too, sweetie? Patricia asked. Or would you rather do it yourself? I need help, Lena whispered. I can't lift my arms very high. That sentence sent chills through all three adults. Sarah helped Lena slip her arms out of the jacket, which fell to the floor. Then she gently grasped the hem of the girl's shirt. Tell me if this hurts. Okay, Sarah said. She began to lift the shirt, slowly, carefully. As the fabric rose, she saw it. They all saw it. Wrapped around Lena's torso, covering her chest, and extending down to her waist, were layers and layers of bandages. Not medical tape, not proper gauze. These were makeshift wrappings, crude and dirty, made from what looked like torn sheets and strips of fabric. Some of the material was stained with old blood, brown and dried. Other sections showed fresh seepage, bright red against the dingy white. Oh my God, Patricia breathed. Sarah's hands froze, the shirt bunched just below Lena's shoulder blades. She looked up at Principal Henderson, who had gone pale. Lena, honey, who wrapped you like this? The principal asked, her voice strained with the effort of staying calm. Hector, Lena whispered. He said it would make the bleeding stop. Bleeding from what? Sarah asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. From when he hits me, Lena said simply, as if this were obvious. He uses his belt, mostly, sometimes other things. He says I'm bad, that I make him angry, that I deserve it. Mama doesn't know. She works so much. And he said if I tell, she'll hate me because I broke our family. The words hung in the air, each one a knife to the heart. Sarah felt something break inside her, some fundamental belief in the goodness of the world. She looked at this tiny, fragile child wrapped in dirty bandages, hiding injuries that must have been excruciatingly painful, going through each day in silence because a monster had convinced her that her suffering was deserved. Can we take the bandages off? Patricia asked gently. We need to see how badly you're hurt so we can help you feel better. Lena nodded, crying harder now, but also seeming relieved, as if a terrible weight was finally being lifted. Patricia began to carefully unwrap the crude bandages, her trained hands gentle but efficient. As each layer came away, the reality of Lena's situation became clearer and more horrifying. Beneath the wrappings, the girl's skin was a canvas of abuse. Fresh bruises bloomed purple and black across her ribs. Older bruises had faded to yellow and green. Welts crisscrossed her back, some scabbed over, others still raw and weeping. There were burns, too, small circular marks that could only have come from cigarettes. Sarah turned away, her hand over her mouth, fighting the nausea that rose in her throat. This was systematic. This was prolonged. This was torture inflicted on a child who had no way to protect herself. Principal Henderson was already on the phone. "This is Principal Henderson at Riverside Elementary. I need police and an ambulance immediately. We have a child with severe injuries from physical abuse. The child is safe with us currently, but requires immediate medical attention and protection." She gave the address, answered questions, her voice steady despite the horror of what she was seeing. When she hung up, she knelt beside Lena, who was now standing in just her pants, the bandages forming a pile on the floor, her tortured skin exposed to the light for the first time in who knew how long. "Lena, you are the bravest girl I've ever met," Principal Henderson said, tears finally breaking through her professional composure. "What happened to you was wrong. None of it was your fault, and I promise you, absolutely promise you, that the person who did this will never hurt you again." Lena collapsed then, her legs giving out. Sarah caught her, gathering the girl carefully into her arms, mindful of the injuries. She held her while Lena sobbed, her small body shaking with the force of emotions finally released after being held captive for so long. "You're safe now," Sarah whispered over and over. "You're safe. We've got you." But even as she said the words, holding this broken child in her arms, Sarah felt her own tears beginning to fall. They came slowly at first, then faster, until she was crying as hard as Lena. Patricia was crying too, and even Principal Henderson had tears streaming down her face. They stayed like that, 3 adults and 1 tiny girl, all crying together in the quiet office until the sound of sirens announced that help was finally arriving. The next 30 minutes passed in a controlled chaos. Paramedics arrived first, their faces professional and calm as they entered Patricia's office. But Sarah saw the momentary shock in their eyes when they saw Lena, saw the careful way they masked their reactions for the child's sake. "Hi there, sweetheart," the lead paramedic, a woman named Jessica, said gently. "My name's Jessica, and this is my partner Marcus. We're going to take a look at you and make you feel better, okay?" Lena, exhausted from crying, simply nodded. She'd retreated back into herself somewhat, the flood of emotion giving way to a kind of numb acceptance. Sarah stayed close, holding the girl's hand as Jessica and Marcus conducted their examination. "How long have these injuries been present?" Marcus asked quietly, documenting each wound with photographs that would later serve as evidence. "I don't know exactly," Principal Henderson answered. "The child has been enrolled here for 2 weeks. We believe the abuse has been ongoing for some time." Jessica worked carefully, cleaning the worst of the wounds with antiseptic, while explaining each step to Lena in a calm, soothing voice. "This might sting a little bit, honey, but we need to clean these so they can heal properly. You're doing so great. So great." 2 police officers arrived next, Officer Martinez and Officer Chen. They introduced themselves to Lena but held back, letting the paramedics work while they spoke with the school staff in hushed tones just outside the office door. The child named a male relative, Hector, as her abuser, Principal Henderson explained. "He's apparently staying at the home, providing childcare while the mother works. From what the child said, the mother is unaware of the abuse." Officer Martinez, a veteran with 20 years on the force, shook his head grimly. These cases are always the hardest. Has anyone contacted the mother? Not yet, Principal Henderson said. We wanted to secure the child's safety first. Good call. We'll send units to both the home address and the mother's workplace. The perpetrator needs to be taken into custody immediately, and the mother needs to be informed. Officer Martinez paused, looking through the office window at Lena, who was being gently wrapped in clean medical gauze. That poor kid. How does this even happen? How does someone look at a child and decide to do something like this? Sarah, standing nearby, found she had no answer to that question. She'd asked herself the same thing 100 times already. Inside the office, Jessica was finishing her preliminary treatment. Okay, Lena, we're going to take you to the hospital now so doctors can make sure everything heals properly. Is there anything you want to bring with you? Any special toy or book? Lena thought for a moment, then looked at Sarah. Can Ms. Reynolds come? Sarah's heart squeezed. Of course I can, sweetie. I'll ride with you in the ambulance if that's okay. Principal Henderson nodded her approval. Go. I'll handle things here and make sure your class is covered. The trip to Memorial Hospital took 15 minutes. Lena held Sarah's hand the entire time, her small fingers gripping tight as the ambulance swayed around corners. The adrenaline that had carried Sarah through the initial discovery was fading now, leaving her shaky and drained. But she couldn't fall apart yet. Lena needed her. At the hospital, they were met by Dr. Sarah Patel, a pediatrician who specialized in abuse cases. Her manner was gentle but efficient as she conducted a thorough examination in a private room decorated with cheerful animals and bright colors designed to put children at ease. Lena, I need to look at all your injuries very carefully, Dr. Patel explained. Some of this might be uncomfortable, but I promise we'll go as slowly as you need. If you need me to stop at any point, you just say so, okay? The examination revealed the full extent of the abuse. In addition to the welts and bruises visible on her torso, Lena had older injuries on her legs and arms, some healed, some still healing. X-rays showed 2 previously broken ribs that had never been treated, allowed to mend on their own. The cigarette burns numbered 7 in total, deliberately placed where clothing would hide them. Whoever did this knew what they were doing, Dr. Patel said quietly to Sarah, while Lena dozed, finally given something for the pain. The injuries are severe but calculated to leave no obvious external signs. This suggests someone with experience in abuse, possibly with a history of violence. Sarah felt sick. How long will she need to stay in the hospital? Several days at least. The wounds need proper treatment and we need to monitor for infection. Some of these injuries have been wrapped inappropriately for what looks like weeks. I'm honestly amazed she didn't develop sepsis. Dr. Patel paused. The psychological trauma will take far longer to heal than the physical. This child is going to need extensive counseling. As if summoned by their conversation, a woman from Child Protective Services arrived. Her name was Karen Williams, and she'd been assigned to Lena's case. She was in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I've been briefed on the situation, Karen said, settling into a chair beside Lena's hospital bed. The perpetrator, Hector Martinez, has been arrested at the home. He resisted at first, became violent with officers. They found evidence at the scene to corroborate the child's account, including the belt he apparently used and cigarettes matching the burns. What about the mother? Sarah asked. Has she been told? Officers are with her now at her second workplace. She's being brought to the hospital. From what we understand, she genuinely had no knowledge of what was happening. She worked 16-hour days, left before Lena woke up most mornings, and came home after she was asleep. Hector convinced her he was helping, that he was taking care of Lena. She trusted him. Can Lena go back to her mother once she's released from the hospital? Sarah wondered. though part of her dreaded the answer. "That will depend on our investigation," Karen said carefully. "If we determine the mother failed to protect her child, even unknowingly, there could be consequences. Right now, our priority is Lena's safety and well-being. We're opening a full case investigation, and family court will make decisions about custody once we have all the facts." Sarah looked at Lena, sleeping fitfully in the hospital bed, her small body dwarfed by the medical equipment surrounding her. This child had been through hell, and now she faced uncertainty about her future, about whether she'd be allowed to stay with the mother she loved. The system was designed to protect children, Sarah knew that, but it often felt clumsy and imperfect, capable of inflicting new wounds even while trying to heal old ones. "Can I stay with her until her mother arrives?" Sarah asked. Karen nodded. "Of course. Familiar faces are important right now. She trusts you, and that's valuable." An hour later, Rosa Martinez arrived. Sarah knew it was her before anyone said a word. The woman who rushed through the door looked exactly like Lena, the same dark hair and eyes, the same delicate features. But where Lena's face had been carefully blank, Rosa's was a mask of anguish. 2 police officers followed her in, along with the social worker. "Mi hija," Rosa gasped, rushing to the bedside. "My baby. What happened? They told me Hector hurt her, but I don't understand. How could I not know? How could I not see?" Her hands hovered over Lena, wanting to touch, to comfort, but afraid of causing more pain. Tears streamed down her face as she took in the bandages, the IV lines, the evidence of what had been done to her daughter while she worked to put food on their table. Lena's eyes fluttered open at her mother's voice. "Mama? I'm here, mija. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Rosa was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. "I should have protected you. I should have known. I'm your mother, and I failed you." "You didn't know," Lena whispered, reaching for her mother's hand. "He told me not to tell you. He said you'd be mad." "Mad? Oh, baby, no, never at you. Never." Rosa looked up at the assembled adults, her eyes red and swollen. "I want to know everything. I want to know what that monster did to my daughter." Dr. Patel stepped forward. "Perhaps we should speak privately, Mrs. Martinez. The details are disturbing." "I don't care," Rosa said fiercely. "She's my child. I need to know what she endured because I wasn't there to stop it." Over the next 30 minutes, Dr. Patel walked Rosa through Lena's injuries. Sarah watched the mother's face cycle through shock, denial, guilt, and finally, rage. By the end, Rosa looked like she might collapse. "I'm going to kill him," she said simply. "I'm going to kill him for what he did to her." "Mrs. Martinez, I understand your anger," Officer Chen said firmly. "But Hector is in custody now. He's going to face justice through the legal system. The best thing you can do for Lena is focus on her recovery and cooperate fully with CPS." Rosa's attention snapped to Karen Williams, the CPS caseworker. "Are you going to take her from me? Is that what this is?" "I'm going to conduct a thorough investigation," Karen said gently but firmly. "Right now, I need to understand how this abuse continued for what appears to be several months without you noticing. I need to understand the home environment and what measures you'll take to ensure Lena's safety going forward." "I'll do anything," Rosa said desperately. "I'll quit one of my jobs so I'm home more. I'll never let anyone else watch her. I'll move us somewhere new. Anything. Please don't take her away from me. She's all I have." Sarah felt like an intruder on this raw, intimate moment of a mother's guilt and fear. But Lena was squeezing her hand, silently asking her to stay, so she remained. "The investigation will take time," Karen said. "For now, Lena will remain in the hospital under medical care. You're welcome to stay with her, Mrs. Martinez. In fact, I encourage it. Use this time to reconnect with your daughter and understand what she's been through." The rest of the day blurred together. Hospital staff came and went, checking vitals, administering medication, bringing food that Lena barely touched. Rosa never left her daughter's side, holding her hand, stroking her hair, whispering apologies and promises in both English and Spanish. Sarah finally left around 6 in the evening, exhausted to her bones, her heart heavy with everything she'd witnessed. At home, her husband David took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. "What happened?" he asked. Sarah told him everything, the words tumbling out between sobs. She cried for Lena, for the innocence stolen by a man who was supposed to protect her. She cried for Rosa, whose hard work to provide for her daughter had been twisted into a weapon against them both. She cried for herself, for the loss of her naive belief that children in her classroom were fundamentally safe. "You did the right thing," David said, holding her tight. "You saved that little girl's life. If you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't acted, this could have gone on for years. Or worse." "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed at first," Sarah said. "The first few days I thought she was just shy. I didn't push. What if I'd waited longer? What if I'd convinced myself I was overreacting?" "But you didn't," David reminded her. "You trusted your instincts. You documented everything. You worked with your team to help her. Sarah, you were exactly the teacher Lena needed." Over the next few days, Sarah visited Lena in the hospital during her lunch breaks and after school. Each time she saw small improvements. The physical wounds were beginning to heal under proper medical care. The psychological wounds would take much longer, but Lena was starting to smile occasionally, to engage in conversation beyond simple yes or no answers. Child Protective Services continued their investigation. They interviewed everyone, examined the home where the abuse had occurred, built their case. The evidence against Hector Martinez was overwhelming. In addition to Lena's testimony and the physical evidence, they found journals where he documented the punishments he'd inflicted, twisted justifications for his violence written in cramped handwriting that revealed a deeply disturbed mind. The criminal charges were extensive: multiple counts of child abuse, assault with a deadly weapon, false imprisonment, and more. His public defender had already indicated he planned to plead guilty, likely hoping for a lighter sentence. The prosecutor was pushing for the maximum penalty under state law. For Rosa Martinez, the situation was more complicated. CPS determined that while she had been negligent in leaving Lena with an unchecked relative and in not noticing the signs of abuse, she had not been directly complicit in the violence. She was required to complete parenting classes and undergo regular home inspections, but she would be allowed to maintain custody of Lena once the girl was released from the hospital. "Your daughter is very lucky to have a teacher who cared enough to act," Karen told Rosa during one of their meetings at the hospital. "Many children in similar situations suffer for years because the adults around them don't want to get involved, don't want to believe something so terrible could be happening." Rosa sought Sarah out the next time she visited, catching her in the hospital hallway. "Ms. Reynolds, I need to thank you," she said, her eyes filling with tears again. "You saved my daughter. You gave her a voice when she'd been silenced. I don't have words for how grateful I am." Sarah hugged this woman she barely knew, this mother who'd been working herself to exhaustion trying to provide for her child, never knowing that her sacrifice was being exploited. "Lena is an amazing little girl, brave and strong and so resilient. She's going to be okay, Mrs. Martinez. It'll take time, but she's going to be okay." "I hope you're right," Rosa whispered. "I pray every night that she can recover from this, that she won't hate me for not protecting her." "She doesn't hate you," Sarah assured her. "She loves you. That's why she kept the secret for so long, because Hector convinced her that telling would hurt you. Children will endure unimaginable pain to protect the people they love." After a week in the hospital, Lena was finally discharged. The physical wounds were healing, though she'd carry scars, both visible and invisible, for the rest of her life. She left with prescriptions for antibiotics and pain medication, with a schedule of follow-up appointments with pediatricians and therapists, with a CPS case file that would remain open for months. She also left with something she hadn't had before: hope. Hope that the nightmare was over, that the person who'd hurt her could never reach her again, that there were adults in the world who would fight to keep her safe. When Lena returned to school 2 weeks later, Sarah had prepared her classroom carefully. She talked to the other students about how sometimes people go through hard times and need extra kindness. She'd arranged for Lena to have accommodations, a special cushion for her chair to sit more comfortably, permission to take breaks whenever she needed, understanding if she needed to miss school for therapy appointments. The first morning back, Lena walked into the classroom without her blue jacket, for the first time since Sarah had known her. She wore a cheerful yellow shirt, and while she still moved carefully, there was something different about her, something lighter. "Welcome back, Lena," Sarah said warmly. "We're so glad you're here." Lena smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I'm glad to be back, Miss Reynolds." The other children welcomed her with the uncomplicated acceptance that only children could offer.